at Davos, and what your message is to the assembled business and public sector and civil society leaders here in Davos, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming to this. Let me just very quickly say that everyone sort of knows that that Nigeria is, in GDP terms, possibly the largest economy in Africa. And also that in the past 3 quarters, Nigeria has been in a recession, and that after that recession continues, the economy contracted by about 1.8% in the last quarter of 2015. But we've developed a robust economic recovery and growth plan, not just to take the country out of recession, but more importantly, to set us on a path of sustained growth. That economic recovery and growth plan is very important to us because it's also an opportunity for us to address some of the structural problems that the economy has. And we're seeing production coming back up. And we're also looking at the opportunities that this offers for diversification, given the fact that the Nigerian economy, as I pointed out, is almost a single source foreign exchange earner and largest revenue. In fact, oil is not just the largest revenue earner, but also accounts for practically 52% of non-oil revenues as well. I mean, it accounts for roughly about 52% of non-oil revenues as well. So it really is crucial. But we're looking at diversifying. We're looking at agriculture, the whole agro-allied value chain. We're looking at petrochemicals. We're also looking at manufacturing, which is quite critical, as well as other sectors other sectors that we think would be particularly important. In manufacturing, for example, EPZs are very important, and that's one of the key ways by which we're trying to focus attention and focus our energies on manufacturing. And we think that would create opportunities, to create opportunities both for local investment and foreign investment.
Before we take more questions from the floor, I need to squeeze one in that came in through social media earlier. Most of you might be aware that the forum has this young community of millennials, the global shapers, and they're very active in Nigeria as well. For example, a great hub in Abuja, and they've been begging me and said, "Can you ask our vice president to send us a message?" So what do you think? I mean, the forum has only started, the 47th annual meeting, but what would be your message to the young people in Nigeria to take away from this meeting, and also from the theme of responsive and responsible leadership?
I think that people say about young people that they're leaders of tomorrow, but I think that it's very clear that they're leaders of today, because really the future has actually arrived. And so many of the young people that I come across in Nigeria have shown such tremendous versatility, such tremendous talent and energy. And with the digital age and with all of the advantages of today, they are clearly in the driver's seat in so many different respects. I mean, they control opinion on social media. They control the direction of technology with the innovations and all of those, and all of the new things that are going on. And in many senses, they are defining entrepreneurship, defining governance. So I think that this season belongs to them. This time belongs to the young, and I'm not so sure that they need anyone's permission to do the great things that they're doing. Certainly, they don't need the permission of any older generation to do the incredible things they're doing. And all I want to say is that at least the government of Nigeria is solidly behind them, and we expect that the coming years will see even greater achievement. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
The message that I actually took to the communities that we're not always going to have the kind of value that oil has today, and that in another, how many years? I mean, some say 30 years, some are even saying much less, or maybe less valuable than it is today. And that we really need to be, first, I mean, to them, is really more, let's take advantage of the window that we have, and that we cannot afford to continue the kind of militancy that leads to low oil production, and time is running out. So I think that that message is one that resonates with the communities. Their response to it, has been very positive. I think that all they're saying is, okay, let's engage, let's talk about this. There are issues around justice, there are issues around resource control. They have their own issues. But I think it's a very sobering message, and the facts are all there for everyone to see. So they know this is not to frighten anyone or to push anyone to negotiations in any way. And I think it really does resonate with them.
Thank you very much.
I think the most important narrative today is what our plans are to get out of the recession. We have a Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which is a 4-year medium-term plan, which first addresses the question of getting us out of the recession, and then, of course, how to go on the path of sustainable growth. The most important aspects of that plan are, macroeconomic stability, diversification of our economy, and a very robust social investment scheme. Now, they just to go from the social investment scheme, because that speaks to the question of inclusion. The social investment scheme is peculiar in the sense that it's not a social safety net in the traditional way. This is one where we are actually looking to develop capacity, especially in the young people. So a lot of the investment actually goes into the development of capacity at the level of very, very young people.
Because the opportunity of 180 million plus consumers in Nigeria is incredibly appealing to anybody wanting to make money in a low growth environment.
Yes.
So where can you assure investors that this economic growth and recovery plan is going to lead to macroeconomic stability?
Absolutely. And I think that most investors in Nigeria, most who see the investment climate in Nigeria, are actually quite bullish. And I believe that many of them see what the immediate prospects are. If you look at the macroeconomic environment, and one of the reasons why in our earlier discussion this morning, I was pointing out that once you understand why you're where you are, and for investors, they're smart. They understand it. I mean, it's not a structural problem, as someone pointed out. For instance, look at foreign exchange availability. It's a supply issue. We know why we don't have as much foreign exchange as we ought to have. And a lot of that has to do with the problems of oil production, which was, of course, affected by the insurgency in the Niger Delta and all of that. We're resolving that. Once that is resolved, obviously more dollars come into the market. When we have more dollars, those who are looking to import are able to import even more. Now, but just going beyond that, also affecting the policy, our foreign exchange policy, which we have, and carrying that policy to its logical conclusion. Also trying to direct attention to local investment. People simply have to invest locally. We're investing 50 billion in export processing zones this year alone. Those export processing zones are supposed to create an opportunity for investors to invest locally and draw from local resources. So this is an opportunity for the investor. I mean, a lot of the private sector players, especially the distribution companies, are highly leveraged. So there's a need for them, of course, to find fresh capital to be able to invest in metering, for example, just metering, so that they can collect their money and all of that. They can collect their tariff invoices and all that. That's an area where we need to do a lot of where we need to do a lot of work, trying to get money into the system, and we believe the World Bank partnership is going to help a great deal in that respect. What we're planning to do in agriculture and what we're doing in agriculture is, first, we intend to be completely self-sufficient in rice production, in tomato, in wheat, and in rice. Just take rice, for example. Rice is an important commodity for us. There's a lot of, there's a lot of demand for rice. But more importantly, there's also a lot of foreign exchange being spent on rice importation.
Exactly.
Yes.
You import
Yes.
a great deal of
But-
rice.
Yeah. But now with the work that we're doing in growing rice, especially in Kebbi State, in Sokoto State, Jigawa State, in the northern rice belt, as well as in Ebonyi State in the southeast, we're seeing that there's a great deal more activity in that sector. For example, Kebbi State, which is in the north, and Lagos State just came together to do just over Christmas. Kebbi State produces large amounts of rice, and they supplied Lagos State with the rice, and they were able to work together to produce several thousand bags of rice, which was sold over the Christmas on an experimental basis. And we actually saw price of rice dropping in the markets. So those kinds of collaborations are important. But the more important narrative is that we're producing the rice aggressively, and that we're able to produce, larger acreage of rice because we have the right seedlings. We're irrigating, and we're financing that sector. There's seeing a generally improved economic space. Investments have gone up almost by 100% since about a year ago. That's foreign investment have gone up almost. So I think that we're in a moment of great movement, great dynamism. I think things are moving on very well.
And I think a good thing for Nigeria is that you've been listed in the top 10 countries of ease of doing business. Yes. What difference has that made to you coming to this investment conference here at Davos?
Well, I think the major thing is that we have some acknowledgement from the world, especially the World Bank, that Nigeria is a place that's open for business, and that, as you said, we're listed among the top 10 reforming countries in the world in terms of ease of doing business. So this is very good for us, and a lot of investors, of course, are looking our way on account of the fact that they see a positive development in terms of creating a better environment for business. We've also just recently released our incentive regime, a publication which details all of the available incentives across sectors of the economy. So it's a bullish period for us in terms of attracting business, and we're excited.
Well, speaking about sectors of the economy, I know one of Nigeria's great dreams is to start growing its own food again after years of importing with oil money. How is that going?
That's going very well indeed. What we've found, for example, just to take rice as an example, between rice and wheat, for instance, we were importing almost $3 billion worth of that particular produce. But today, we are possibly one of the largest growers of paddy rice. We're doing close to 11 million metric tons of paddy rice. Milling is a bit of a problem, but we will be self-sufficient in rice production, we hope, by 2019, by early 2019. At the moment, we're doing exceedingly well. Imports of rice have gone down by as much as 80%. And that's one of the major food imports that we have. We're also looking at other areas, sorghum, millet, and all of those areas where there's also a great deal of activity and a great deal of agricultural growth. At the same time, agriculture also means more jobs. So many more jobs are being created, especially in the farming areas.
And in these times as well, you're seeing great buoyancy in the stock market, and also your foreign reserves are increasing. Yeah, I mean, how has that been going?
Well, that's excellent. That's excellent as well. Foreign reserves are $40 billion, which is the highest in about 4 or 5 years. And we're also seeing a great deal of progress with respect, as I've said, to investment. But this is going very well indeed. We're quite happy with the capital markets. We're listed as possibly the best performing capital market in the world. In the past, there's a recent, about 2 weeks ago, that report came out. We hope to be able to sustain that bullishness in the capital market.
And infrastructure, I know that's a big story as well, particularly on the power front for Nigeria. Are you going to use some of these foreign reserves to help build up Nigeria's infrastructure? What spending are you planning?
Yes. For infrastructure, we're doing quite a bit. First, with respect to power, we're now doing something in the order of between 7,000 megawatts and 9,000 megawatts. Now, we expect that with improvement in transmission and distribution, that will be able to make an impact. At the moment, the impact isn't as wide as we would want it to be, isn't as deep as we want it to be. We want the power sector, we want, the consumer to actually feel that impact. And that has to do with a lot of investments in transmission and distribution, which we're doing, the last mile investments to get to the consumer. With respect to rail, we're doing a lot of work in rail. We're doing the Lagos-Kano rail, the new standard gauge. That has already started with the Lagos-Ibadan end of it. We're investing close to $10 billion US. We're getting some funding from the Chinese with counterpart funding from Nigeria. We've already provided our counterpart funding. They are providing their own part of that resource. We're also doing the Lagos-Calabar train route, which we expect will open up that route also, the whole of the Delta area, going up towards the southeast and the south regions and all of that. So that's also something we're doing in the area of infrastructure. So roads are big for us, railways. We're working very hard on railways, and of course power.
And how much more do you plan to increase the investment in places like Lagos that are highly congested, as we know, sort of metro rail, that sort of thing? Have you got any plans for that?
Well, the Lagos state government, as you know, we're a federal state. So the government of Lagos state has its own plans. I'm told that they're interested in doing the fourth mainland bridge. I haven't heard of any new developments in terms of the metro infrastructure at this time, but I know that they're trying to open up new roads, especially the fourth mainland bridge, which will be a major road route around the city, going into the outlying areas of the city, into Greater Lagos. So I think that will happen. But one of the things that we're doing is that in the standard gauge rail, we'll be going through portions of Lagos all down the southwest from the port areas. So this is really important, especially from the point of view of the movement of petroleum products, movement of goods from the port area, because the railway actually starts in the Apapa port and then goes out to the outlying area to the outlying areas through the southwest all the way up north. So we think that will improve the general logistics, transport logistics.
And what about social investment spending for the people on the ground in Nigeria? What are you going to do there?
Yes, we since 2016, we're possibly we're probably investing in the most ambitious social investment project that the country has ever seen. We're putting 500 billion naira in the budget, and we've done that twice now. This new budget, we're also putting about the same amount of money, which means that we're able to engage in total, we hope we'll be able to engage 500,000 unemployed graduates. We'll be able to give microcredit loans, conditional cash transfers also to the poorest of the poor. So our social investment scheme is very important. Philosophically for us, it really is a question of not just talking about macroeconomic policy. We are concerned about social policy. Social policy is crucial, because we think that for the inclusive growth that we've been talking about, we must find a way of accounting for the vast majority of our people who still are in one form of deprivation or the other. And that's why this social investment scheme is extremely important. And we hope that we'll be able to actually improve on the numbers in terms of the social investment itself, and also to see incremental numbers in those who are coming out of poverty.
Nollywood is coming to Netflix. Nigeria's massive film industry is known for cranking out low-budget productions, thousands of them. Now it's aiming for quality instead, and it appears to be paying off. Netflix bought the worldwide rights to Lionheart, a film about a businesswoman who must work with her rivals to save her father's bus company. It premiered over the weekend at Toronto's International Film Festival. Genevieve Nnaji is the director and the star. She joins us from Toronto. Thank you for taking time to come and talk to us. Where did you get the money, and where did you get the expertise that was going to allow you to make a film that could stand on the world stage?
Expertise would be over 2 decades of experience in the industry. For money, we had to self-fund, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we don't have adequate funding for movies that we actually intend to go global. There isn't that provision yet.
And you know, a lot of people feel that Africa could grow a lot faster with more of its own refinery capacity. So tell us about this project that you've started, and also how tough is it going to be for you? I mean, it must be very challenging, because you're going to be competing against the European, the Chinese, and the American companies who are all elbowing each other to satisfy Africa's energy needs.
What we're going to do now, really, we're going to do 500,000 barrels. It was 400,000, but we're upped it now to 500,000 barrels of oil refining per day. Then petrochemical of polypropylene of 750,000. Metric tons. I know that, yes, it's very, very challenging, but that's what we like. You know, in Dangote Group, we like challenging things, and we like to make sure that we do things where we'll make our country proud and also self-sufficient. So once we do this, Nigeria will never ever import any oil at all. No petroleum products, zero. You know, we'll meet up the full capacity, and we've taken up a land that will allow us to grow 3 times. You know, so we have plans of also further growth. What we need to do as Africans, first of all, is to show that confidence that yes, it is possible. It can be done, and then the foreign investors will follow suit. There is nowhere on earth where foreign investors will go and create an economy or make that economy great. No, the local people must move first. Right. When they move first, then they will be supported by the foreign investors.
How do you stay grounded? I mean, you seem like a very simple and humble man. You know, usually in Africa, when people are rich, they tend to flaunt it. I speak here from experience. How do you stay grounded?
Which experience did you?
I wasn't rich, unfortunately, but from the different things that I've seen around the continent, even when it comes to the leaders of the African continent.
You know, it's always better to be humble. You know, they say that no condition is permanent. So I want to always run my life, whether I have money or I don't have money, I can run it, and it's true. I'm sure your life is more expensive to run than mine.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm sure.
I've heard you say this in several interviews, that corruption doesn't stop business. What do you mean by that?
Well, corruption doesn't stop business. There's no country without corruption. Even our own in Africa is well pronounced because we have very weak institutions. You know, what you need are very, very big institutions, so that when you cross the line, there's somebody that will deal with you squarely. But, you know, be it in America, in Europe, or anywhere, I mean, these are countries that also have corruption, not at the same level with what we have in Africa. My own duty today as a Nigerian, not as Aliko Dangote, is to keep convincing people to come and invest in Nigeria. And I keep telling people that, look, Nigeria is the best kept secret. If I don't want competition, I'll just sit down and keep quiet. But I think the country is much, much larger than my interest. Right. Okay, so the more investors that we have, the better.